Our next speaker is Dr. Yewande Akinbami. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I have tried to say it again and again and again. So, with a quick introduction, she's a senior program officer at the Clinical Comparative Effectiveness Research Unit at PCORI. We're just talking about large data sets. We were talking about real world. And here we have the PCORI studies, especially for my students, are the studies which are built in to real world, real practices. Okay? And it's somewhat independent of directly NIH. Even I've been on some of the study sections, which are different, the way we look at it. But the way I see it, for the clinician, for those who are out in the field, the PCORI data is extremely important because that's what they do day to day. The inclusion, exclusion is not as strict, excluding every patient walking to the clinic. So, Dr. Akinbami will be talking to us a review of the PCORI research portfolio and priority. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really want to thank you for the opportunity to present here today. It's been a very insightful conference or workshop, so to speak. Learned a lot to take back to PCORI. So I will be giving you an overview, as was widely said, about what PCORI does. My presentation will be slightly different from many of the presentations you've had already because I'll focus a lot. I believe not everybody knows PCORI. So I'll try to talk a little bit more about how we approach research, what we fund, and then give you a snapshot of the studies that we funded and the type of portfolio related to this field right now. And then also go in depth into like funding opportunities and happy to answer any question as needed. So what is PCORI? It's a Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. We are the leading funder of patient-centered comparative clinical effectiveness research that's designed to help people make better informed healthcare decisions. We are not government, but we are non-profit governed by a board representing patients, caregivers, diverse stakeholders, and part of what is important to PCORI, what we found is that we require diverse stakeholder engagement throughout research development, conduct, dissemination, and uptake, so to speak. So how do we do research differently? For PCORI, the fact is that we engage patients and stakeholders throughout the research process, and you will see this with any funding application that you put to us, where it's important that we get the patient voice, that we get the stakeholders' voice, that we see that we engage them adequately. And the whole idea is to be able to fund comparative effectiveness research that compares at least 2 health treatment services or practices. And the heart of this is to answer questions that are most important to patients and those who care for them, their providers, their caregivers, as such. And we also aim to produce evidence that can be used in real-world practice settings. And so for us, we see patients, or when we think about a research study and putting together the research team, we tend not to see them as participants, but as partners. And so these are the types of different stakeholders that we tend to try to ensure that research teams bring together when they are designing their study and throughout the course of the study conduct. So I don't need to go into the details, but you see patients, family caregivers, researchers, healthcare systems, purchasers, policymakers, industry, and such. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, we talk about patient-centered, what is that? But the patient engagement. So for us, it's basically, like I said, addressing outcomes, benefits, or harms that are important to patients. The interventions proposed for comparison are currently available to patients. So we see it as interventions that either have effectiveness or are widely used or widespread use within the healthcare system. And the study design is ideally, you know, we have them be on global needs. And then we also ensure that for our stakeholder engagement that you partner with different stakeholders, so to speak, and leverage their expertise in terms of being able to help inform your study, as well as including and ensuring that existing relationships and also new ones can be established even as you design and are conducting the study. So at the heart of what PCORI does is our strategic approach to achieving all that we've been talking about is this 5 national priorities for health that we see as ambitious long-term goals in order to be able to, that would drive or is currently driving our research funding and other initiatives such as dissemination, implementation, engagement, and such. And the hope is that we're able to make a positive and significant impact on patient-centered healthcare and outcomes. And so these national priorities for health tend to be what we encourage applications to center around P1 or P2 depending. And it is one, to increase the evidence for existing interventions and emerging innovations in health. The other one is to enhance infrastructure to accelerate patient-centered outcomes research, to advance the science of dissemination, implementation, and health communication, to achieve health equity, as well as accelerate progress toward an integrated learning health system. So I know it's very ambitious, but you will see from the way we approach research that at the heart of all of this are which drive what we do. So they're supposed to work synergistically together, whereby we look at this from the point of funding comparative effectiveness research, ensuring that we have adequate stakeholder engagement, ensuring that we fund studies that are looking at disseminating and implementing PCORI-funded research results, as well as investing in the nation's research health infrastructure, including methods for CER, as well as technology that can help improve efficient research studies and intervention. So recently within PCORI, we also came up with these board-approved 12 topic themes that govern some of what we will be funding currently and even in the future. And it's a shame, but you will see that what I was trying to highlight was promoting the health for older adults. You think that's the one that would be very obvious. So I'm excited about this because I think either so maybe for many of you, you have not seen PCORI as maybe a huge funder of studies in aging. But I want you to know that that has become one of our priorities. That's something that we're really looking towards. We've actually done a ton of funding announcements focused on healthy aging. And right now, as part of this focus funding things, is promoting the health for older adults, as well as other populations that are highlighted here and health conditions that are part of what we are hoping to fund. So this is really not limiting. So in terms of if, for instance, you're looking at a question that does not fit into these health conditions, I think you will find everybody within this population. But if for any reason it's not outside of this, we're still very much interested. So it's not like if you don't fit into this, that you would then not be prioritized or you will not be responsive. But what's important is just for you to know that we are very much looking to fund studies within this area. And I wanted to also draw your attention to our stakeholder-driven framework by which we approach older adults initiatives within PCORI. And the overarching goal is to optimize physical and mental function across the continuum for older adults. And if you look at this framework from the first domain, it's really looking at, you have this population of older adults who are in good health, perhaps do not have any clinical condition. And what we hope is for them to stay healthy and prevent any progression of any condition. And we have these double-headed arrows, just being cognizant of the fact that older adults traverse these different domains and could, at any point in time, move from one domain to the other. And so we have the other second group that are older adults that have multiple chronic conditions. We talked a lot about comorbidities with ADRD in the course of this workshop. And so our hope is to slow or reverse the progression of this condition. The third domain is looking at support for functional impairment, looking at and for us, functional impairment covers cognitive impairment, functional impairment, and hoping that we're able to, and that we see that these patients could be at risk for adverse health conditions. And the goal is to stabilize the condition and maintain their quality of life. And at the very end, our study that we're looking at to support advanced illnesses with the hope and the goal to manage their symptoms and maintain their quality of life. The purple bar at the bottom is just recognizing the fact that caregivers really do traverse all of this in terms of them experiencing some of these conditions that are caused with the domains, and at the same time serve as caregivers that are taking care of the older adults. And so our goal is to enhance the caregivers' quality of life. So looking through the PCORI portfolio, generally, PCORI thus far has funded and awarded over nearly $4 billion to fund more than 2,000 research and research-related projects. And I know that I couldn't get much updated numbers, so I know that we're way more than this if you're looking at the fact that this is data that was collected as of last year. And if you're looking at the data, it just shows you that, to the right, the orange chart, our study condition thus far has been mental and behavioral health with cancer and cardiovascular disease coming behind. But why am I showing you this? Is just for you to see that we're very much interested in neurological disorders, and there is room to still fund more of these studies, and we want to increase our portfolio in this area as well. Of course, in line with what we have been discussing about health disparities, many of the populations that we fund are like racial or ethnic groups, low-income population. And priority or most of our research is on comparative effectiveness research, over 80%. But we do also are interested in methods, and I'll talk a little bit more about our methods for the announcement in the course of my presentation. So in terms of just older adults alone, we have funded over 320 million to fund about 63 comparative clinical effectiveness research studies with a focus on older adults. Now, bear in mind that we do not only fund CER, we have other things we do like engagement, like dissemination and implementation. So this is just showing you what we have spent in relation to CER for older adults as of last year. And just breaking it down also just along with that is most of our study conditions are multiple chronic conditions, cardiovascular disease, but there is room as well to be able to see more studies in our portfolio related to neurological disorders. And most of our conditions of interest are racial or ethnic minorities and of course individuals with needs. Please bear in mind that some of these conditions overlap, so they're not individual. And for our ADRD portfolio, we have awarded about $85 million to fund 15 comparative clinical effectiveness research studies. And the QR code here really lists out all of those studies if you're interested to explore our current portfolio. And this is more current because this data is as of January 2023. And I wanted to also just show you a little bit of breakdown on the types of studies that we have and what they look like. So along that stakeholder information, you will see where some of those studies fit in, as well as some of the common primary outcome measures that we see in our current studies. And so if you see this, there's a lot of focus on patient quality of life and caregiver burden, but bear in mind that these are not mutually exclusive, so there might be studies that are looking at multiple outcomes that are listed here. In terms of just study design, we mostly see randomized clinical trials. That's like the most common, but we see others as well listed. And the intervention times normally are systemic interventions, but not say that you don't do also behavioral intervention as well. And then the intervention settings kind of cover the experts of outpatient and community based. And this is just showing you a sample of the type of study that's currently ongoing. And I think some of you might be aware of it. It's called DCARE. It's a comparative effectiveness of health system-based versus community-based dementia care. in a sample of over 2,000 patients with dementia who resided at home or in an assisted living facility. And it's also including their unpaid caregiver. And why I highlight this is that this is a study that's comparing like 3 interventions that address a decisional dilemma on the treatment of dementia for patients, reduction of stress among the caregivers of these patients living with dementia. And the fact that, this is a good study that highlights how they have been able to prioritize patient and stakeholder engagement throughout the design and implementation of the study, and having patients with early stage dementia, caregivers, system leaders, diverse stakeholders that are helping to plan and conduct the study. And I believe that they are going to have the results ready, like maybe in the latter half of this year. And the study PI is Dr. David Rubens, who just want to acknowledge him for that. And we did fund this study. It's one of our large investments in this space, and we did co-fund the study with the NIH. This other study is completed, but I wanted to show you that, I showed you a big study, but there's also a small size study that we funded a few years back that's comparing the effectiveness of behavioral interventions to prevent or delay dementia. And in this particular study, they were comparing 5 different behavioral interventions to be able to delay or prevent dementia. So after 1 year, patients in the 5 groups that they had randomized patients to had similar improvement in quality of life, confidence in managing their mild cognitive impairment. And I think compared with all the patients who didn't use one of the interventions which was health fasting reported was more than patients who didn't use brain training app for their better mood. But this is just showing you the kind of studies that we have typically funded in this space, and the PR is not cases. I also wanted to let you see that we have other initiatives outside of CER, like our dissemination and implementation awards, engagement awards. I'll talk a little bit more about engagement awards because I believe, beyond just CER, you need to also think about the fact that we do provide funding for adequate capacity building and engagement of stakeholders, which I think is very important in this field, especially when we're talking about disparities research, ensuring that their voices are also being heard and they're the table when you're thinking about your research questions is very important to us. We also wanted you to know that we had conducted a pre-summit way back where we were looking at how best can we fund research in this space, what are the questions that matter to them, what are the research methods that we need to take into consideration when we are looking in this space. As well as the fact that we have PCORI, for some of you that may not be aware, it's patient-centered clinical research network that's funded by PCORI. It really is a consortium of about, I think, 8 research networks with over 40 clinical sites and more. And it really is a good resource to be able to use for research for your studies. And I think we have one of the largest studies called Preventive, that's looking at the prevention of dementia in patients without cardiology by them using statins. And I believe that that's a study that we collaborated with the NRA and we that's fund as well. And they're using PCORI to drive their research, as well as some of our meetings that we have done centered around these issues to our panel meeting. So what are the funding opportunities that we have that we want you to be aware of? So for us, there's the broad pragmatic studies, which is, so many of these funding announcements that we have here come through every quarter. So you have opportunities to 3 cycles in the year to be able to apply for this funding. So we have our broad pragmatic studies, which is studies that are up to 5 million for a small scale study. A large scale study will be 5 to 10 million. And then if you're using PCORI, I think you are afforded up to 12 million for the studies. And this investigation initiated awards that are in alignment with some of those national priorities for health. We also have our methods funding that's up to 50,000, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. And then also the Science of Engagement Awards that's looking at how to develop and test engagement techniques, as well as topical or targeted awards that are more stakeholder-driven topics. And so we sometimes, in the course of the year, release focus topic awards that are really addressing questions of national significance. Now, these ones may not get them to come out like recycles. It depends on how well the response is to the initial release of the announcement. And then the biggest award that we do issue is our phase-like awards, which is effectiveness research. It's supposed to be studies that are large, meritorious, innovative, and it's combining two phases, the feasibility phase to test if the infrastructure is in place, if the question resonates, if they're able to put a small sample initially. And that one goes for like 18 months with a maximum funding of, I think, about $2 million. And then if they satisfy that, they move on to the large full-scale phase of up to 20 million up to 5 years. So I just wanted to draw attention because I knew I was asked to talk a little bit more about methods for this meeting. That our methods for an announcement really is to address important methodological gaps and advances and advance understand the appropriate use of methods for CER in a systematic manner. And this is a little dated data, but just to let you see that we funded over 150 million to fund about, provided over 150 million to fund about 140 methods. And then the priorities for our methods is really listed here to improve study design and to improve the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in clinical research. And I wanted to also draw your attention to the fact that we are encouraging integration of those topic things that I talked about, or the adults, some of the medical conditions, into methods that can integrate those into their application. So just letting you see that we're very much interested in this field. I also wanted to talk a little bit about, when I talked about that, one of our priorities for health, which is achieving health equity, that the focus for us is on overcoming the barriers that disproportionately affect health outcomes for healthcare delivery, and seeking to identify the best practices to reduce disparities and improve health equity in targeted population. Basically, all that we've been talking about in the course of this workshop. So that's something I think that we are very much interested in, and of course, the focus is on at least one of these populations. Bear in mind that in me drawing your attention to this, you can have applications that overlap where you're looking at existing interventions as well as achieving health equity. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about our engagement awards funding opportunity. They are smaller size, but we hope that we can use this opportunity, this funding announcements, to engage the community on capacity building, to support projects that help communities increase their ability to participate in all of our phases of CER or patient-centered outcomes research. And then we also have that are looking at dissemination initiatives as well as stakeholder convenience. So if there are populations that you feel like you want to engage them better, these are opportunities that you have that you could look into and apply. And then we have this as our science of engagement PhD, which is just looking at how best to develop valid measures that enable future comparative effective research of engagement methods and testing of the engagement. This one just focuses on implementation of award opportunities. So basically, how can we get the research that we funded and result into the healthcare practice and ensuring that we're able to have this be implemented. I won't stay long on this, but just to let you see that there's tons and tons of opportunities to engage with PCORI. We're currently recruiting for our advisory panels till like March 29. An application is needed, but we need experts like you to inform our studies, to drive the research that we fund, and also participate with some of our stakeholder community. These are just additional resources benefit. And that's my email. Please feel free to connect with me. Thank you so much, and I look forward to engaging with you more.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I'm different. Question.
You just mentioned that disparities is a part of methodology you consider for funding, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, is it high priority among other methods or not?
It is high priority, but I want you to understand, we highlight this for you, but it's something that we're very much interested in. In fact, all of our funding announcements within methods we always encourage the fact that you have to think through the disparity lens and how can you best ensure that you're recruiting understaffed populations and minority populations as well. So it is of high priority to us. And I think it's something that we're very motivated and encouraged.
Is it methods for changing design or among your classification?
So talking in the context of methods, right? So in the context of methods, I think it's about how you integrate it into the design. And for us, it's encouraged, and we've seen people look at it in different ways. Maybe the data sources are coming from some of those communities. Maybe they are looking at some of the designs that are out there and how best to use it in the context of disparate populations. So that's something that definitely.
This is largely by us, yeah? How we see it. Last question, what about stakeholders?
Yes.
For methods and disparities, for example? How would you see their role?
Yeah. So stakeholders, when you think about methods, to me, I see it as you can leverage the fact that there might be experts on this method that you can bring in as experts that you can consult on the study. Then you can also identify patients that will be of benefit down the line. So like your source data, what are the kind of populations that you're collecting the data from? Bringing some of those people to kind of inform the study and see their perspective at the ways by which I have seen, and that we've encouraged researchers to still engage stakeholders in the context of methods research as well.
One last question. My question would be, I've been involved. Do you have to have an approved treatment and then work with like CMS or Medicare to have a PCORI grant, or it can be independent?
It can be independent. It can be, you have to think about it as, aside from the fact that it has to be like approved interventions, which I think is what you're thinking about, we also accept interventions that may not be efficacious, but are in widespread use. And so widespread use to us is in different contexts, depending on what is the research question. As long as it's more than one institution that's using the intervention, it's also acceptable. And so just what you're saying, what you said initially is acceptable, it's not we should take that.
Thank you very much.